This is going to sound a little strange, so bear with me a moment, my friend. Tell me, have you ever daydreamed? For most of us, I think the answer would be yes. Picture it now, would you? Maybe you are sitting in a cafe, or possibly in a classroom, or maybe you are at work or some other tedious event. Nevertheless, your mind begins to slip, to spill over its edges just a little bit. It's happened to all of us at least once, I think, and you especially, right? How many times have you argued with shades in the shower over what-ifs or possiblies? But here's where things get a little odd. Here's where things get a little strange. Have you ever daydreamed about being eaten by a monster? As you sat in that cafe, have your eyes wandered to a spot where no one was sitting and pictured someone who is just a little prettier or odder than a person should be? Maybe he or she has milky brown hair or eyes like raven's feathers with a black band around their throat. It doesn't matter. My point is, have you ever wondered, daydream, or nigh wanted a person like that to take a delicate bite out of your shoulder? For most people, I think the answer would be, of course not. Absolutely no way. But for some, the daydream happens. And for others, it just keeps happening over and over again. There are a few stories I'd like to talk about today. The first is Call of the Night. Now, Call of the Night is a story I love profoundly for a lot of reasons, but the thing I really want to talk about today is the interesting nature of how the vampirism in the story works, and why so many desire it. And for that, I think there is no better character to talk about than Kabara Honda. Kabara is one of the more aloof vampires in the story. She is picky, somewhat gloomy, but confident, self-assured. She seems to know who she is and what she wants. It doesn't particularly matter to her if she turns people away. But Kabara was not always like this. After all, most vampires were once human. Kabara as a human could not have been more different. As a human, she is nervous, depressed, melancholic. She doesn't go out or have fun because of her nerves, yes, but also because of her body. Chronic sicknesses, endless pains, and hospitalizations. I think what most people might not understand about pain is that something chronic and without end is far more awful than even the most piercing of instantaneous pains. Chronic pain wears you down. It eats away at your mind and faculties. It erodes you, reduces you, subtracts your ability to concentrate and enjoy things. It drains the color and vibrance of living and makes each moment an escalating eternity of suffering. I have more respect than words can mark for those who deal with chronic pains and remain dignified and respectful for those who maintain compassion. I don't know if I'm like that. I'm trying to be. But right now I'm not. Kabara eventually can't stand it anymore. The pain, the perceived judgment and real judgment alongside of her friends and colleagues, the fact that she can barely live as she feels she wants to. Imagine that, if every time you got too excited or too happy, if every time life got a little bit too good or a little bit too vibrant, something in your body gave out and left you in a bed for hours or days or weeks. Imagine if you couldn't sleep for the ringing in your ears. Eventually, those feelings build up. It's caustic, acidic, one drop at a time, a rising pool in your chest, until eventually something gives out and breaks. But it's not all just that, but how it isolates you, cuts you off from people you care about or from those who care about you. Because something I find a little upsetting is that people who have not experienced it firsthand usually don't get it. Some do, of course. But others, they ask, what is wrong? How are you doing? What can they do to help? And it's like, what is wrong? I am in pain and the pain won't leave. Not in any moment, not in any instant. It doesn't go away and you don't get used to it. How am I doing, you ask? What do we say to that? Do we say all right? By what measure do we measure all right? Am I functioning? Maybe. I am alive still for the moment. Am I happy? Trying to be. Am I content? Struggling to be. But am I all right, though? Although I am supposed to answer yes, I think the honest answer is no, I'm not all right. But for now, that in of itself is all right. And if you say, no, you aren't all right, what then? Because whether you say you are all right or not, what they say next is almost always the same bar, a few words. How can they help? Is there anything they can do to help? Is there anything we can do to help? Let us know if there is anything we can do. And then there is a twinge of anger, genuine, real, a drop of vibrant hate. And of course it's unjustified, but there it is. Because what can anyone do to help save for taking away the pain? And that can't be done, so here we are. I think all of this is indicative of the kind of person Kabura was as a human being. But Kabura also has one friend, one person who understands at least a little bit. Or maybe it's not even about understanding. Maybe it's just that when this person is around, when she is around, the pain doesn't matter. Because there is something, my friend, that can make chronic pains and illness tolerable. It's a pull, a desire, a draw. It's like gravity, and it can be towards a thing, or a concept, or an idea, yes, but it can also be towards a person. Some call it empathy, or connection, or compassion. I'd like to call it something simpler in this case. As contrarian and sometimes a cynic as I am, I would like to call that thing love. Love makes quite a lot of things bearable. And maybe Kabura doesn't quite know how to articulate that feeling, at least not yet in the story, but what she does know is that she is willing to let it devour her. She's willing to let this pretty pink-haired nurse open up her throat and end her life as a human being. And it's not just something that she's willing to let happen, no. She wants it to happen. Really, truly, absolutely. And I get it. Because at least a part of me, a small part, is like that also. At least a part of me would be more than all right baring my throat to someone from another world on top of a hospital roof somewhere. I admit, my friend, I've daydreamed about it at times. Other times it's more of a traditional dream. To let a monster take a bite out of you is a curious notion of trust, isn't it? Especially in the case of a vampire like this. Because what you are doing is you are trusting that your life won't be ended. You are trusting that you won't be killed. You are trusting the creature whose reproductive, sexual, and dietary systems are one and the same to have a modicum of self-control. And yet, at the same time, there is another part that goes, I'm trusting you to make either choice. It doesn't matter. Either I become like you and we go on walking and talking and dining together and living together at night beneath the stars. And there is something about that, more intimate and oddly compassionate than anything else I can imagine. How can you display a greater bond of trust than when someone is quite literally fang deep in your throat and you put your arms down and say, please, continue. Or, my life, my red, ends. It ends and enters you and becomes you. And maybe there are worse things than that. I think there probably are. Because maybe if my body won't be good to me, then maybe it would be good to someone else. In the end, Kabura becomes one of those night walkers. She can run and drink and have fun as vibrantly and endlessly as she wants. And I think that there is something about that, but maybe it's just me. But there is another story I want to talk about as well. The story is, this monster wants to eat me. This is a story about a girl. Her name is Hinako. She's not doing well. Each day waking up is a war, getting out of bed a relentless struggle, let alone leaving the house and going about the day, let alone interacting with other people. Because sometimes grief and despair take the form of someone like Kabura. Sometimes it's an indelible part of you since the moment of your creation. Sometimes things aren't right from the start. Something is out of place and you have to work to mend it or move past it. Other times, it takes the form of what is marked Hinako. She was born, like many, with an endless fascination of the world around. Childlike wonder, passion, excitement, naivety, sure, but I don't think it's always bad to be a little naive. But you know how these things go. Some of us come into the world less marked than others, but I don't think anyone truly leaves the world unmarked. The world's fingerprint will be left on you, for good and bad, probably both. Hinako lost almost her entire family to an accident. Much of her own body was left burned, and mind scarred along with it. One day, Hinako encounters a mermaid named Shiori. And what do we know about mermaids, ladies and gentlemen? They eat people, and not like vampires, where sometimes it's a terminal feasting, but not always. Mermaids eat it all. Skin, muscle, blood, hair, nail, teeth, fat, and bone, all of it. And yet, still, Hinako doesn't run, because there is a certain kind of longing for it. Oblivion, yes, but there are undercurrents of other emotions as well. She hides her scars constantly, and when they are seen, she always says the same similar things about their unsightliness, how they reduce her, how they might sour the appetite of her mermaid companion. And maybe it's just me, but that to me sounds like there is an undercurrent of some kind of odd desire, the desire not unlike the one of looking appealing to someone you care very much about, or one who you want to care about you, who you don't want to scare off. That's a thing, isn't it? People hide their scars, internal and external. And yes, they do it around friends and family, right? But nowhere is it more prevalent than when there is that special kind of connection we call love or interest that can only be found in one other person. In situations like that, people hide their scars more than in any other. But for one reason or another, the mermaid Shiori doesn't care about the scars, internal or external. Why should they matter? All that matters is the heart and the bone and blood and thin skin that is wrapped around it. Scars don't affect flavor. In other words, if we are talking about this metaphorically, someone can still care about you even if you are wounded, or unsightly, or whatever. And I think that's a weirdly beautiful thought in a story about a sad girl who wants a mermaid to eat her. Or maybe I'm just being a little stupid, I don't know, and looking into things that I shouldn't look into. But I do think one of the things that sets Shiori differently as a monster when compared to Kabra or most of the other vampires from Call of the Night is that she has never been human. Kabra, Nazuna, and all the rest were humans or live so connected with them that there is little to set them apart. They aren't human, but they are close. Parts of themselves are crystallized desires that they had as human beings. The desire to run, the desire to live each night to the fullest, the desire to walk away from a cruel life, the desire for true companionship. Vampires in Call of the Night lose their memories, but not the desire. One might say that as humans are turned, their desire is what crystallizes into a new heart and their new being. They are not what they were, but a single desire still links them to what they were. But Shiori the mermaid is not that. She is manipulative and deceitful. She is a monster through and through. She likes Hinako, yes, but it's not exactly supposed to be a redeeming quality. It's something that feels entirely different, almost selfish. And there is another kind of charm in that, I think. I like monsters, you all know this by now, and I like when a monster is allowed to remain a monster. Sure, I like when they are humanized sometimes, but the fact that Shiori's true form isn't a pretty mermaid, but a horrifying one, that does something for me. And the fact that her heart is just the same, that feels good. That feels right. It's a strange idea for a feeling. And if you don't get it by now, maybe I can walk you through it at least a little bit, because there is something special about the idea of being chosen by something as old as the seas, something equal parts beauty and horror. There's something special about when a monster, a real one, says to you as an individual, I want you, I need you, every ounce of you, every scrap of you, every cell of skin and drop of blood I desire, I want your heart and what is inside it. It's a complicated, messy story, and I don't think it's any one thing, but I think it's an interesting psychological phenomenon, you know? Now, with everything we've discussed, I would hope that some of you are like, oh, I get it. Not all of you are going to be, and that's fine. But some of you might be asking, how does something like this start? And you know what? I've been wondering the exact same thing. I wasn't born with an interest in vampires or mermaids, was I? There had to be a moment. There had to be a point in time where something shifted, an inflection point. And you know what? I think I might have found it. You guys know Tokyo Ghoul, right? You know I love Tokyo Ghoul, right? Well, early on in the story of Tokyo Ghoul, there's this character, Tsukiyama. He is this grand gourmand among ghouls. He loves fine dining upon human parts. Anyways, some people get caught, he wants to eat them. We're continuing. Kaneki at this point in the story is kind of a bum. He's not winning this fight against the gourmand. He's losing it. It's not going well. And so what he does is he bares his shoulder to Toka, who's this kind of altish cafe girl. And well, I'll let you see the rest. I saw that at probably a more impressionable age than I should have. But what's interesting is later on in life, when I reread the story of Tokyo Ghoul, there is this theme that is prevalent throughout the story of the marks we leave on each other, visible and not, painful and not. When we go through life and connect to other humans, we leave fingerprints on their souls, just as they do on ours. These marks are irremovable and permanent. And I think Tokyo Ghoul is a story a little bit about that. Take a character like Jason Yamori. His whole thing is leaving marks on people, permanent ones, really awful ones. Anyway, the point is that when two ghouls choose to give their lives to one another, they mark each other with something permanent and intimate. A bite on the shoulder. And so when Toka bites Kaneki, in this instance, it is both obviously a strategic snack for a fight with the gourmand and an indicator of her burgeoning feelings towards him, a way to tell other flesh eaters that this one is hers. And of course, Tsukiyama loses his shit over this, and it's a great scene. It's one of my favorites in the story. And so I guess there are a few different meanings and philosophies behind the human desire to be eaten by a pretty monster. There's the manner of Kabura from Call of the Night, about throwing off shackles, constraints, and restrictions. There's the manner of Hinako from This Monster Wants to Eat Me, which I would argue is a little bit more messy and a complicated desire. And the idea of marking something permanently from Tokyo Ghoul. All of these things are odd, no doubt, but I also think they are a little bit indicative of the human desire for connection, no matter if it is self-destructive or not. You see, human beings are drawn to each other, relentlessly and endlessly. But in the absence of another human being, maybe a monster might work instead. And maybe, sometimes, a monster is a little more honest. Not always, of course. Sometimes monsters lie. But maybe, after everything, that's all right.